So a friend dropped in this beautiful flight tenor Voyager uke, and it plays beautifully, but it's got one issue, and that is whenever he plays with any strength or power, he gets a string buzz. See if you can hear it. That's the G string, C string. Yeah. Less so, bit of it on the first. So it's really, these two strings are suffering badly from it. Just by looking at this one, I can see that the top surface of the saddle is actually flat. And there's about 1 millimeter of surface that way. That's just completely flat, and that will create that sitar sound, that so. And that's the thing that's been bugging him. So, first thing I'm going to try is further intonating this saddle and refining it to a point. So after refining the saddle here, it turns out that some of this buzzing was not happening due to the saddle, but rather was happening at the other point of contact, the nut. So what's going on here is that these string slots, the gaps, have been overcut. So they're a bit too deep and they're a bit too wide. So what's happening is when the string is hit, bzow, 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 the energy going through the string is causing it to vibrate off the sides, and you're getting that bzow, bzow, bzow sound. So a way of identifying, now not fixing, identifying that issue is to put a piece of paper under the string. We're just trying to isolate it and make sure that that is indeed the problem. So we put the piece of paper under the string, hold it up like this. I'm going to run my finger under the string just to lift it out of the nut slot. Slide that piece of paper up so that it fills the slot, kind of wrapped around the bottom of the string basically, and then let the string go. So now that piece of paper is going underneath the string. So we're kind of padding out the string and seeing what it would be like if the string slot was not overcut. And now if you listen, the bzow 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 is gone. So this is just a way of diagnosing the issue. You can go a few different directions if you want to fix it. So let's see how we fix it. I begin by taking off the strings and then using a safe edge razor blade to scrape the fingerboard clean. I then tape up the area around the nut, and before going any further I need to make some bone powder. Here you see me packing it into the slots. So now I'm just going to add drops of super glue basically into what was the previous slots. Now they have been filled with ground up bone, same material that the nut is made of. So this is kind of like a cheeky little reset for a nut that has been overcut. So I let it dry overnight. So at the moment this looks like the table found the morning after a banking convention. But this is just a beginning point, so this will be smoothened off, filed down, and those slots will be recut. A DIY home repair attempt had left a big blob of glue on the soundboard, so I used a safe edge razor blade to scrape that away. That took me down to the level of the finish, and then it required a bit of scraping, sanding, polishing, waxing, buffing, up until the point where it's barely visible. So you can only really see this mark if you run a light straight over it. So next up is the nut slot, using a rotary tool to bring down the height, and then a file to tidy up the sides, eventually using a slot file to cut the slots. Here you see me tidying it up. It was still pretty rough, but I wanted to put the strings on and check it. So most of this uke's issues have been fixed. So it's playing clean, no more bzow. But we do have two things that I'd like to fix. One is the nut height here. So I have it playing nicely, but the issue is that I prefer a lower action than what we currently have here. So what I'm going to do is slightly deepen each slot for the strings, but I'm also going to lower the nut height overall. So ideally you would like for the bottom half of the string to sit inside the nut slot and the top half of the string to protrude. And up here there's another issue that I only noticed actually when I was just checking it after having fixed everything, and that is that there is a tall fret here. So this fret is tall, meaning that when you hold down one fret here, you get the same note in two places. And that's pretty bad. So I'm going to have to knock this fret down or level it off, and we'll fix that issue and get it playing good. So I begin by taking the strings off and using the file to lower the nut height and slots. Then I go on to using files and sandpaper on that tall fret to try to take it down and tame it and get it playing right. I use lemon oil to restore the fingerboard. And just when I thought I was done putting the strings back on, one of the wobbly machine heads broke. Now, to be fair, the two on the left had fracture lines in them when we started, and they were a bit wobbly, so I was going to contact the client and let them know that they're on borrowed time. But yeah, just as I was stringing it up, one of them broke, so that went to plan B, and we had to replace all those machine heads. My supervisor was not impressed. So to recap, we got rid of that blob of glue on the soundboard. We further intonated the saddle to fix the buzzing noise. We got rid of that tall fret and restored the fingerboard. We replaced the broken machine heads with much prettier ones, and this uke has gone from being 90% of the way to Amazing Uke to 100% of the way.